How to bring a conversation back on topic. As a panel moderator, it will happen to you. It's not a matter of if it will happen to you, it's when it will happen to you. When some panelist goes off tangent and you're like, where did that come from? You need to get them back on track. I'm Kristen Arnold, and I'm a professional panel moderator and a leading authority on panel discussions, and it is truly an art about how to intervene gracefully and firmly and professionally so that the audience feels comfortable with you doing that, and actually is probably like going, yeah, thank goodness. But the panelist also feels good about the intervention and isn't shutting down on you. Let's find out how. I coach a lot of first-time panel moderators, actually seasoned panel moderators, and one of their biggest concerns is what do you do when somebody goes off topic or starts dominating the conversation? Those are the two that I see the most. And generally speaking, the intervention is kind of the same. You have the ability to bring the conversation back on track. And in fact, the audience is expecting you to do that because nobody else is going to do it. You are the first, probably the only line of defense. In this video, we are going to cover how to prevent these problems from happening in the first place, and what you're probably most interested in is how do you intervene gracefully and firmly to bring everything back on track. Let's dive right in. One of the tools that you have in your panel moderator toolbox is something called a prevention strategy. As a professional facilitator, I do this all the time. I've talked to the meeting organizer. I've talked to the panelists. I kind of know what their MO is. I've built rapport with them. I kind of have a feeling about whether they're going to stay on track, or maybe they talk too much or whatever. I kind of have a feeling about what's going to go on. Maybe the panel is going to be really a short panel. It's only 15 minutes, or maybe it's 30 minutes, and I've got somebody who's going to be long-winded, or I probably have a pretty good idea what could go south, whether it's somebody's taking it off track, or somebody is talking too long, or somebody's not speaking at all. I probably have a pretty good idea. So given that, think about the prevention strategies that you can implement in place to make sure that people stay on topic and don't dominate the conversation and have the ability to weigh in. These are called prevention strategies. Okay, so let's talk about some very specific prevention strategies that I use almost all the time. First, I tell the panelists that we have limited amount of time. So to keep their stories short, keep it concise, please practice some of those things that you know are key takeaways that you want to share with the audience. I'll talk with the panelists about a signal that I'll have. You know, like in baseball, there's like a signal that says, hey, you're talking too much, or I'm just going to give you the evil eye. You know, there are certain things that you can do that you say to the panelists ahead of time. This is, you know, you need to wind it up. Short story here. I was working with a very high level group of panelists. They were allowed initial remarks, like 5-minute initial remarks. And this is where you're going to run into a big issue. And so I had timer board, like not the timer board that's in front of you, the countdown timer, because people ignore that. But I had a big foam board of 5 minutes was like red, or no, 2 minutes was red, and the 5 minutes was green. You know, so I was flashing these boards, and I said, at minute 0, actually it's at 30 seconds, I am gonna start walking up to the front, which is your sign that you need to like stop. And then if you do not stop, I will come up to you and I will put my arm around you. I kid you not. Can't believe I did this. But I knew that this panel was going to go sideways because this guy was going to talk a lot. I'm going to put my arm around you, and that's your sign that you really need to button it up. I only had to do that once, and the guy looks at me and he goes, I need to button it up, don't I? And I said, yes, you do. These are ground rules that you can put into place so that your panelists know what to expect. Another prevention that you can put into place is at the beginning, when you're doing your introduction, is you can say, we are very short on time. I've asked our panelists to keep their comments short and brief. If any of you have a question, something that you want to dig in deeper, feel free to connect with them either right outside when we're done or send them an email. And that's a reinforcement to the panel that they need to be concise. Okay, so think about the preventions of whatever you need to do to make sure that your panel stays on track. Prevention strategies are priceless. I hope that you've gotten some good value out of this. If you have, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to this channel so that whenever we drop one of these videos, you're going to be notified as soon as we drop it so that you get access to these tips too. I'm assuming your prevention strategies are well thought out, they're in place, they will probably prevent most things from happening, but the world is not perfect. You will have somebody who takes the group off topic, and this is when you have choices about how you are going to intervene. There are a couple of things that you need to be aware of when you're intervening. Number one, be firm, be graceful, and be fair. You can't intervene with one person one way and intervene with another person a different way. So if you're going to cut somebody else off for talking too long, but you let somebody else talk a lot longer, that's not fair. So kind of think about be firm, fair, and gracious. So in my humble opinion, you have choices. The first thing is you can do nothing. If you are on a panel and it's the CEO of your company is one of your panelists who's taking it off topic and that person is your sponsor, well, you have a choice. You can do nothing or you can say, I need to intervene. Now, the lowest level of intervention is one of those cues, one of the hopefully this is a pretty obvious cue. That's not a low-level intervention. But see, that was an escalating intervention that I shared with the group about how I was going to prevent them from going beyond their initial remarks side. The lowest level of intervention that you can do is kind of like lean forward, give them the evil eye, do some kind of some kind of gesture that you've agreed in before. So some people might put their hand up or lean forward, that kind of thing. Very low level. The audience probably doesn't even see what you're doing. The panelists probably do. But let's say that kind of eye contact, maybe a little movement, maybe that's not working. So now you have an opportunity to just remind people of some of the ground rules. So like if you put in a ground rule that said each panelist has maybe two minutes. If you know that they dominate, you said, we're going to try to limit our thing to 2 minutes. You could say, we're getting close to 2 minutes. Or you could deflect and as they're talking and there's a breath, you can say, so Mohammed, what do you think about this? So there are different ways that you can kind of redirect and remind people about what it is that we're doing. If you put some ground rules or maybe refer to the agenda or the process or something. So let's say giving them the eye or a gesture or a little movement doesn't quite work. Well, then you want to escalate that to maybe a little bit of a redirection. You've got somebody who is going off topic, or maybe somebody who's talking too long, or maybe somebody who hasn't said anything. When that person has a space and they're taking a breath, you can go, so Mohammed, what do you think about that? Maybe Mohammed is the person who hasn't said anything and you want to create that opening for him to say something. Or maybe you're just trying to redirect the conversation from the person who's gone off track or the person who's gone on too long. Okay, so there's a subtlety and art to that kind of redirecting the conversation. But let's say that doesn't work either. So what do? Now this gets a little bit more obvious. You say, we had agreed that we're going to keep our comments short. Can you wrap that up? Or can you, like one of my favorites is, can you headline that? Like as they've got a little voice, or a little space in their breath, I'll go, can you headline that? Okay. They kind of understand because we've had that conversational drumbeat, that this is supposed to be conversational, and we have some ground rules, and they kind of, okay. Generally speaking, a small little reminder is enough. But even so, that might not be enough, or something comes at you from left field that you go, I have to intervene quickly, and so I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to confront the person. I'm going to, no, I need to do something. And usually it's a redirect or a confrontational kind of comment. I'm not a big fan of confronting, like, where did you get that idea? Or, something that's inappropriate, because I'm neutral and objective. I can't say, oh, well, where'd you get that information? It just doesn't work. So for me, I like to reinforce the panel objectives. This is how it shows up for me. Let me give you an example of this. I was moderating a panel in Canada, and President Trump had just gotten elected. And we had a very, very left-wing woman on our panel who was not happy that President Trump was our president. Whatever your opinions are, she was not happy. And we're in Canada. And she, for some unknown reason, and I did not see this in the planning, any of our conversation, she brought up how the United States was going to go horrible, and she just went off about the effects of Trump being president. And the Canadian audience was starting to get, it wasn't even it was 10 seconds into this. 10 seconds is a long time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not going well. And so I immediately jumped into her conversation. I did not wait for a breath. Nothing. I just said, excuse me, how does that relate to our topic? And she looked at me and went, well, of course it relates to our topic. And then she brought it back on the topic, like how that observation was filtering for her. And then we were able to move forward. You could almost hear a literal gasp of relief from the audience. Because imagine if she just went on this tirade, it would have made everybody uncomfortable. We would have lost the entire audience and not delivered on the promise of the panel. So that's an instance where you as a moderator, you have a wide range of options to choose from. And it's not start at do nothing and then a little hand gesture, a little eye movement. It's use the appropriate level for the situation that you have at hand. Wow, we've just covered a pretty interesting topic, the art of escalation. Now, this was just the beginning. If you are interested in taking a deeper dive, I suggest going to my free video course. It's the 7-part video course at www.howtomoderateapanel.com, and it's also in the show notes. I hope to see you there.